Bronco, tense, aggressive, with many adjectives, and has defined this meeting. But the reaction of the guest that day in the Oval Office was missing. On his social networks, Zelensky has defined it as regrettable, recognizes that it was not as it was supposed to be. But he turns the page and writes he wants to do things right, that is, to return to the White House, to sign the agreement on minerals and security at any time and in any format, he says, in a somewhat condescending tone with Trump, and he adds he is willing to work under the firm leadership of Washington. He thanks his counterpart for his work for the sovereignty and independence of Ukraine and gives as an example the sending of Javelin missiles precisely a few hours after the Republican has turned off the tap of all military aid to Kiev. And for the first time in 3 years, the dream of a truce translates it into concrete ideas. In the first phase, he proposes to release prisoners and cease air and sea attacks, provided that Russia does the same, and then move very quickly in the following stages with the help of the United States. No one but us Ukrainians, Zelensky assures, wants peace in the country.
Like a projectile pointing towards Kiev and towards Brussels, Trump's latest decision has forced a quick move. The president of the Commission came out this morning to say that Europe is ready to exponentially increase its defense spending, both to help Ukraine urgently and to strengthen its long-term security. Van der Leyen puts a figure on all this. 800,000 millions of euros that will come out of loans from the European Investment Bank, private equity, and especially from member countries, which would have greater flexibility in fiscal rules. But since this is not built overnight, the Ukrainian Prime Minister has said that although they have the capacity to resist at the front, they are ready to redirect the dialogue with the United States. Trump did not rule it out in his last speech, when he said that everyone has to get into a room, get talking, and the agreement can be reached very quickly. Zelensky said shortly after that the conditions must be created for diplomacy to achieve a dignified peace. The United Kingdom will use its good relations with the White House to help Ukraine as much as possible, said Starmer II, who spoke with Trump again yesterday. Only Moscow is satisfied with the situation. It would be the best contribution to peace, the Kremlin spokesman has said. This morning, Russian drones have attacked Odessa Izumi, causing several injuries and leaving thousands of homes without electricity.
This morning, Donald Trump has officially declared the trade war. The tariffs of 25% to Canada and Mexico and 20% to China come into force. All of them have responded with their own tariffs.
They are emphatic. There is no reason or justification that supports this decision that will affect our peoples and nations. We have said it in different ways: cooperation and coordination, yes; subordination, interventionism, no.
Mexico-Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately. Beijing's response: China does not want a trade escalation, but neither does it bow to Washington's pressures.
La respuesta de Pekín es contenida. China no quiere una escalada comercial, pero tampoco se doblega a las presiones de Washington. Por eso contraataca con más aranceles.
That's why he's fighting back with more tariffs, this time on food coming from the United States. 15% to chicken meat and crops such as wheat, corn or cotton, and 10% to soybeans, other meats and fish, vegetables and dairy. In addition, it restricts exports and investments to 25 American defense, security or technological companies.
Agricultural products are next on Trump's tariff list. He made it clear last night on his social network. He asked his farmers to prepare to produce much more to supply their domestic market, because the tariffs will be applied to imports on April 2nd. Because for him the tariffs, they are the most beautiful word in the dictionary. An announcement that worries in Spain, since our agri-food industry is at stake for 3,500 millions of euros in exports to the United States, mainly in olive oil, wine, and table olives. Any tariff would make the selling price of the product more expensive, making it less competitive and attractive to the American consumer. We think that there will be no distortion in the international market because all countries will have the same treatment, and in our case, olive oils. That would be the least harmful scenario, they tell us, to record all the countries. It would be worse, tariffs only to the community bloc, or even more harmful, if it were to specific imports from specific countries. As Trump already applied to Spain in his first term, and that continued to weigh on the table olive. Any tariff that is imposed on Spain, and that is not imposed on countries outside the European Union, would be a very serious detriment to us. In anticipation of any scenario starting in April, the sector is preparing by already looking for new markets to relocate what the United States stops buying.
The norm that they have registered in the Congress has 13 articles. In them, there is talk of delegation of competences, in none of session. That is the argument that the government defends.
We are talking about a delegation of powers, not an assignment. It is born in the Constitution and is applied with the Constitution in hand.
It refers to Article 150, in which it is said that it may delegate powers corresponding to matters of state ownership. Just in the previous one, the Magna Carta specifies that immigration is the exclusive competence of the state. Carlos Puigdemont sees the pact as a victory.
They will manage a competition that is normally exercised by the states.
The staff of the Mossos d'Esquadra will be reinforced. They will have new functions. They will be at border posts, although they will work in coordination with the Civil Guard and the National Police.
Border control is not ceded.
The Generalitat will manage the internment centers, may issue identity documents to foreigners, authorize residence permits, and expel those who are prohibited from entering Spain.
We are more prepared for the future as a nation.
The independentists avoid committing to the future, but say they have gained confidence in the government. The executive reminds that they need your support.
Distrust has decreased.
The parliamentary complexity has not changed. The PP is already studying the text to stop it. They do not spare Pedro Sánchez in disqualifiers.
It is a vase that the independentism of junts puts on and takes off.
An absolute wimp of separatism, also against Podemos. They believe that junts is a racist party and defend that there are other priorities. The coalition partner does not avoid confrontation. For us, the key is, I insist, respect for legality and, of course, fundamental rights. The Moncloa are willing to study similar proposals from other autonomies.
If it comes to the case that some community shows an interest and takes a step forward in that regard, of course it will be studied.
The Basque government has already said that they will take the pact into account in pending negotiations. We are watching from the Basque country with great interest. The main civil guard associations and the majority unions of the National Police are threatening to go to court and demanding the resignation of the Minister of the Interior, among harsh words against Pedro Sánchez. An absolute wimp of separatism, the PP announces that it will take the agreement between the PSOE and Junts to the constitutional one, because it transfers, they say, exclusive competences of the state.
This is an unprecedented humiliation. We have a president of the government of Spain who is a vase that is put and taken away by the independence movement of junts.
Among the partners, Podemos announces that it will not support him because the socialists, they say, have made a pact with an anti-immigration party that competes with the Catalan far-right, and Sumar says it does support them because the agreement respects the Constitution and human rights. We are going to share spaces, for example, with the Mossos and others, but for us the key is, I insist, respect for legality, and of course fundamental rights. And the rejection is frontal from the main associations of the Civil Guard and the majority unions of the National Police, this scandalous and illegal transfer of competence.
With a real embarrassment and a freak.
And they are calling for the resignation of the Interior Minister. Better news is coming from the Gemelli Hospital in Rome. Dad has not had any new episodes of respiratory crises. You have not had any new bronchospasms, and you do not have a fever, a sign that no new infection has appeared. Keep breathing, of course, needing breathing, oxygenation. But during the day, They have removed his mechanical ventilation, which we would say is like a machine that breathes for him. They will be put back on at night to prevent repeated episodes of respiratory failure. What they also tell us is that the Pope has alternated today, for example, prayer with rest, and we journalists commented that we are following this information from the Vatican, that it has disappeared from the medical reports. From the information offered by the Holy See, the fact that the Father is working, is reviewing or signing documents as he did these days, we do not know if he has stopped having that habit or the situation now does not allow it. Moreover, in the Vatican they are somewhat readjusting the agenda a little. We are in important days, on the eve of Lent. Tomorrow, for example, is Ash Wednesday. The traditional spiritual exercises begin on Sunday, and all this will be done in the absence of Pope Francis, who has already been admitted for 19 days, and still without a forecast of how much longer he will have to be there to heal.